Welcome, fellow synthesizer sickos. I'm Vulture Culture, and tonight we're checking out the Yamaha CS70M. I just got this bad boy back from Ramiro at Severed Machines. The link is in the description if you want to get your CS70M modified. So there's two mods that I had him do, as well as calibrating it and getting it into impeccable shape. And the first mod, if you have seen my previous videos on the CS70M, I've complained about a few things. And one of them is that it doesn't have Aftertouch to brilliance, actually, as a default. You have Aftertouch and you can route it to the filter over here. But when you route it to the filter, you're actually routing it to the LFO depth of the filter, right? You're not routing it to the actual brilliance of the dual filters in here. And then the other issue was vibrato, and he solved that as well. So if you have a CS70M, or actually any vintage synthesizer, Ramiro does all sorts of mods. When I saw him last, he had one of those Boss DR 550s, I think they are, and he had modified it so it had pitch controls and everything on it, so it was like a little mini 808. It was incredible. And he had painted these little orange stripes onto these micro knobs there, because it's just a small little drum machine, right? And when I looked at it, I was like, I thought that was how it came, until I realized that he had added a bunch of knobs and stuff. It looked really classy. So let's go ahead and I'll show you what I mean. So we can put this synthesizer into manual mode just by hitting these buttons over here. And now everything is active on the panel. So we can kind of figure out where we want to be and see what kind of sound we have. Take it out of Unison mode. And now what we're hearing is everything that's here on the front panel. So let's go ahead and we can bring the brilliance down. And if we then increase the sensitivity here. Well, I thought I had this figured out. Let me see. So what's super fascinating about this is that you'll notice, like, if I move this, if I sweep this, the stepping is very apparent, right? So well, not everything, actually, everything that's stored in memory on the synthesizer. So right here, and these controls, not this control, none of these controls, not these controls. So there's a lot, not these controls. So there's like a bunch of analog stuff, and then stuff that's controlled digitally in memory. And any of those parameters on this synthesizer are heavily digitized, right? You can really hear the stepping going on. And it doesn't sound that great, obviously. So I was assuming, for instance, and the way that he modified this as to not mess with the front panel is if I turn the output switch off. Normally that would turn the volume off of the synthesizer, but it's still on. Now it's just turned off Aftertouch so that you could use it in a pure state. No Aftertouch. Now, if I route the Aftertouch to the filter, you'll hear what that sounds like. Right? And it's even more obvious if I go to VCO. You could probably hear the stepping between no value and then the first digital value. Not so much. It's actually pretty good. So what's interesting is when we turn this on and we apply some Aftertouch, it's like butter smooth. Which is awesome, because I would have thought that the values coming out of the Aftertouch strip on the synthesizer would be digitized, but they're not. So it's a really awesome advantage, because the thing about the CS70M, if you're not familiar with this synthesizer, hello, I'm Vulture Culture, I love this synthesizer. The thing about it is it is the update to the CS80, in the sense of they actually improve some things, like it's got auto tuning and things like that people would have killed for on a CS80 because those are such a motherfucker to tune. However, it also lost a few things, and one of the biggest ones was that brilliance. So to be able to do these big... Droner, welcome. I know Dubstation Zero is good at fixing those types of problems. Chris Farrell, welcome. So I've always wanted to get an SK30 in the studio. So what that is it's the string machine version of the Yamaha analog sound, and they look very similar. They all came out at around the same time. This synth came out in 1981, and I think part of the reason its sales weren't so great is because look at it. It looks like a 70s synthesizer, which I love. I mean, you couldn't pay for a more incredible looking boat of a synthesizer. I adore the look of it. However, in 1981, think about like what pop culture was like at that moment. People would have been like, yo, this looks like the previous decade. I want a Jupiter 8, I want something that's like forward thinking and colorful, whereas this has this sort of drab yellow 70s thing, which again, I adore. To answer the question about the SK series, they might have some advantages. I suspect that they actually have this Aftertouch to Brilliance feature that isn't present on a stock CS70M. But of course you don't have a filter per voice, so it would be hard for me to sell this synthesizer for say an SK30, but because you can get SK20s for around $2,000 or so, it's a lot cheaper than this bad boy. Let's discuss the other feature here. So that's a sort of CS80 Blade Runner. You just need two saws. And you start to get that sort of sound. But a big part of that sound is the vibrato. So we can route the sine wave LFO. We've got a bunch of different stuff too. We've got glide plus and negative sample and hold, ring modulator, sawtooth down. But for now, we'll just use the LFO on sine and route it to the VCO. We have to route it to 1 and 2, or else it can only affect one or the other, which is very helpful. And of course, we're looking at one set of parameters, right? But this is a bitimbral synth inherently, or a dual channel, as it says here, in the sense that we're actually controlling two separate synth voices at the same time. And then as soon as you save one to memory, right, then you can edit the other one if you want to do more complicated stuff. But for now, we'll just leave it on like, a pretty simple setting for doing this Blade Runner brass type thing. And so I can turn the EG depth, attack, and decay all the way down. This is so that you can make the LFO dynamic, so that it changes rate over time, which is an awesome feature. We can actually just put the speed kind of dead center and bring up some modulation depth. If you've seen any of my videos before on the CS70M, you'll know that the very first digital step you get to is too much, right? It sounds like this. That's what the very lowest amount sounded like before. Now, we could get right in there into those sweet spots. And that's what this knob is for. So this is an analog fine-tune knob, so we can control the speed of the LFO a little bit closer, so because we only have so many digital values here for speed. And so being able to now control the cutoff of the filters, both filters at the same time, with Aftertouch, we can finally, with this synthesizer, create a basic Blade Runner brass sound that wasn't possible, which is like the most horrifying thing to me when I bought this synthesizer, right? So let's bring the cutoff down, but increase the depth here. And so we'll get a bit of a filter sweep. It just makes me so happy, right, to finally hear that sound out of the synthesizer. Again, it's like horrifying to me that the synthesizer didn't ship like this. For some people watching this right now, I'm sure they're like, what is the big fucking deal, bro? Like, basic synthesizers can do this type of thing. And the answer is, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is kind of the thing that you deal with vintage synths, is their quirks, their limitations, and so on and so forth. But this synthesizer sounds so good, but it just had those little things that bothered me. And so the fact that Ramiro, which by the way, he said, send them to me, you know, if you're watching this video and you have a CS70M or a similar synthesizer that has a similar problem, he said, send them to me. The link is in the description. It's definitely worth checking him out. Welcome everybody who's just getting here now. I mean, what do you expect? It's just such an incredible instrument. And so we have these features now to be able to expand the expressiveness, you know. And does it sound exactly like a CS80? Well, the oscillators are almost the same. The only difference is they added the ability for auto-tuning, right? Which is, I would say, a plus for something like one of these Behemoth synthesizers. The filters are the same as the CS80 and the other CS synths, and the amplifiers are the same. The digital controls and things are different. You know, you have to, the way it's gain staged to me sounds different. Right now we have the volume on the amplifier at about half. If I bring this down, I don't know how well this will translate through YouTube compression, but to me, it definitely has, you know, almost a more saturated, crunchy sort of vibe to it. I've never played a CS80, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know if you push the VCAs hard in the 80, if you can get this more aggressive sound. To my ear, you usually can't. To get those 80 type sounds, I usually have the volume at about half. It's more in that, you know, giving that more delicate side, but even at 50%, to my ear, the synthesizer is less, has a more, when I say it sounds more fuller in the low end and so forth, that might sound like a positive. On most synthesizers, it probably would be. The 80 is perfect, right? It's one of those synthesizers. It's like the Mini Moog or the Prophet-5. When you vary from that template, you are not necessarily going in a good direction, right? So anyways, I wanted to spend the rest of this stream, more or less, going through some of the stuff that you can do with the CS70M that either you can do with an 80, but you might not think about it with an 80, or you might not be able to do it with an 80, right? So one of the best examples of this, we have a sawtooth here. Let's detune that. So we're going into more of that territory, right? And what we're going to do is swap to a high-pass filter. And the interesting thing about the high-pass filter, so on an 80, you have both a high-pass filter and a low-pass filter per voice. And if you kind of sync them up, you can make a bandpass filter, right? But you don't have the flexibility that you have with these envelopes on an 80, so you can't do this type of thing. Right? It's a different synth. And I think too many people are quick to write the CS70M off as being, you know, just a sort of like not so good version of the 80. And when you compare it to the 50 and the 60, right, they're very similar in the sense that they have mono aftertouch. The 50 and the 60 are going to sound more like the 80, but it doesn't have all of the features that we have here. It is crazy what you could do with the synthesizer aquatic. T-Bone, welcome. It's a beautiful thing. The drift is horny inducing. It's a thing of beauty. And you know what else is wild? We haven't even turned the ×5 on. So what this does is it expands the... I don't think it really makes them 5 times longer. I think it might be like 1.5. Honestly, it doesn't do that much, but you can get even bigger drones, bigger, huge textures out of this. So, you know, we've got that. That's a thing you can do. What else could we do? So if we go to the bandpass filter here. Yeah, so Droner's asking about the ensemble effect. So why don't we start off with like kind of like we'll do like a fifth string. So if you're not familiar with the 80, it kind of has these little feet options, which are more or less like borrowed from the fact that the 80 borrowed the GX1's basic organ architecture. So we're going to pick 8 and 5 and a third, and that gives us more of a fifth. We still have this vibrato going on here, so we're going to turn that off for now, because if we're going to put the ensemble on, you'll hear a difference. We could do something else, like we could jump over to pulse width, right? And then route the LFO to the pulse width. If I leave 1 + 2 off, it's only routing to one of the waves. even with the pulse width kind of down, we can cross 0, which you can't do on an 80, by the way. Anyways, let's check out the effects here. So we have ensemble. So this is the same ensemble that they put in the SK series, and it is very good for what it is. Fans who are deep in the lore of this channel will know that I have a sort of love-hate relationship with ensembles, because in my opinion, they have a tendency to make everything sound the same, right? So, but here's how it sounds. Oh no, the Angel Spit record fell. By the way, that is a thing. My friend Carl over in Angel Spit just released a new record, Red End. Here it is. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I put the link in the description, as well as my good friend Miss FD, the dark synth pop princess herself. I got the honor once again to work with her as the engineer on her record. That link is in the description as well. So if you're looking for some new industrial, go check out Angel Spit's new record. And if you want some more dancey synth pop type thing, then Miss FD is the way to go. I think this sounds great, right? You know? But it's very powerful, so you got to get the tuning in pretty tight. That's a beautiful sound. I actually think the tremolo sounds even better. So let's swap to a sawtooth. Right, just very basic here. Damien, I can demonstrate that real quick for you. So when we're on a pulse wave, right, we have a square. So 50% up, 50% down. And most of the time when you can do pulse width modulation, what you're basically doing is shifting the amount of time that's at the top or the bottom, right? So instead of 50-50, you know, it even says on this synthesizer 50 to 90%. So something like 80%. It gets narrower sounding as it goes high. We could take it all the way up to 90% just on the synthesizer without using any modulation, right? So if I turn this off, that's what a 90%, it's a very small sound, right? Now, if we route the LFO to pulse width 1 and 2, and we increase the amount, you'll hear that it goes through 0 to nothing. Actually, in this case, it seems to like peak out just, there's a little in there. It's almost invisible, so maybe I should say it goes not through 0. It's really going through 100%, so I don't, but for some reason in the synth world, we all just say through 0, right? Back to the sawtooth. Let's turn tremolo on. And this to me is kind of more beautiful. I don't know why. Almost sounds like a phaser, right? speed control. So listen to what happens as I press this. It actually automatically modulates the speed from slow to fast, but it doesn't do it instantly. It has like a little built-in effect to it. So you can actually start fast and then press the button and it goes slow. For that kind of effect. And to my ears, I don't know, I actually kind of like it over the ensemble. Ensemble's definitely waterier. Oh, did I have them? Oh, no, I just had that on. And then, yeah, the tremolo, for whatever it's doing, right? It's because it is a mono effect. So everything we're listening to right now is monaural. This synthesizer does have a left and a right output, but tragically, the tremolo, ensemble, and ring modulator are mono effects. So I tend to use this synth in mono. And to be honest with you, I kind of think it sounds better that way most of the time because of the way that the oscillators blend together is very nice. The only time I think it sounds better really in stereo is if you have the resonance cranked, because then you really hear the width from there. Lonnie, how's it going? Welcome. So let's talk about the ring modulator. So as soon as you put the ring modulator on, you don't even have to route it anywhere, and it's on. And it's always on one of the... So in this case, it's always on voice 1 of 2. So if you want to hear only the ring modulator, you can move the balance over here. It gets more interesting as we increase the EG attack and decay time, right? So right now it's just behaving kind of like a normal. And you can hear what a ring modulator really does when we slow it down far enough is it's just modulating the volume. I don't know why we call it ring modulator and not just amplitude modulation, because that's what it is, but... And all that's really happening is that as you approach audio rate, so above 20 cycles a second, you start to hear these interesting sidebands emerge. That's the technical term for these harmonics. And unlike on something like an Odyssey or the Fender Chroma Polaris, right, where the ring modulator is coherent to what's going on with the oscillators on this synthesizer, it's divergent, so you get these really crazy. So this synthesizer, just like an 80, can go real dystopian. As we increase EG attack and decay, so in this case, let's just do only decay for the fuck of it, right? And I'm going to turn EG depth down real quick, and we're going to pick a value that's below audio rate. So 20 cycles or less a second. So right around there sounds to my ear where we're just shy of starting to create some harmonics. Now, as I increase EG depth here, let's see how this sounds. So I actually had to decrease the decay time. It was slowly falling in rate, but very, very slow. So these like more moderate decay times. We could hear it sort of go into audio rate and then come back out. Which is super interesting. For what it's worth, we could turn the ring modulator off and just go to the sine wave, right? And route it to the VCA. So what is that? Well, it's also ring modulating. It's just at a slower rate. I need to increase the modulation depth here. And the advantage here is we can now have both voices, right? Okay, dub. We will continue to brass away. In fact, we can turn this into, first we'll brass it out with a little resonance, right? So currently I'm not really using the filter. It's so beautiful. And then let's try it with the bandpass on instead. And to me, this sounds really good with the high-pass filter. We sort of already covered the high-pass filter pad thing you can do, but it sounds even better when you introduce, you know, just angelic. Right? I think it sounds good. So it's interesting. We've kind of got two different paths. So we can use the ring modulator, and that is still... So what's interesting about this is if I turn it off as a destination, right? You can hear that one of the voices is being ring modulated. It's that inharmonic type sound. But even if we're not listening to that voice, so I'm going to set it to 2, just have like a simple... So the ring modulator is active. You can see this LED is losing his fucking mind. I don't know how well that translates to 30 frames a second. It probably doesn't, but we could still use it as a modulation source. So if I choose to modulate the filter with the ring modulator, we could go above audio rate, right? Textures that are completely different than what you could get with just a typical. So depending on the speed, you're going to get different sorts of vowels. So we've got a really great sort of like robot scream. It's actually kind of distresses me. It's got a cat-like sort of sadness to it. And we're only listening to the one voice, right? So if I move back over here, we can hear the actual ring modulator. Totally different effect than using the ring modulator on just the filter. I gotta sample that and use that for every like tortured robot scene in a sci-fi movie, because that is a very distressing sound in the best way possible. So my point there was just that the ring modulator is a source in and of itself. Let's do a less just horrific example of that. So I'm gonna just turn all of that down, kind of zero it out for a second, give myself a moment just to can I get a scum cheers in the fucking chat, man? That was a lot. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Cheers, guys. Oh yeah. You can really hear the aftertouch there. guys. So we're going now back to a square wave, and man, does it sound gorgeous. Just such a great sound. Yo, Taryn Gray's here. Welcome. How's it going, my friend? So let's apply some pulse width modulation. First, let's do it with just the sine wave, right? And that's as simple as sine wave, PWM, destination 1, 2. And now we have a very nice, PWM. I want to point something out that might not be obvious, because that is one of the most lush sounds I've ever heard. We're still listening to one voice. Here's both voices, right? We could really get away with one oscillator on the synth. It sounds so good, doesn't it? So again, because we're on voice 2, we can use the ring modulator without any issues. So if I kick the ring modulator on and move over to voice 1, you'll hear what the ring modulator's doing. Actually, a pretty cool sound in this particular case. Let's listen to that on the pulse width, though. So that's touching 0. Have you ever heard a ring modulator control pulse width before? So the way this works is we have to tune the ring modulator to what note we're on, because again, it doesn't have that coherence. So we're getting this interesting sort of like downward saw motion. It's not a down saw, it's a ring modulator. The audio rate is just the beating of the difference between the ring modulator frequency and that C note I'm playing is such that we're getting that modulation, right? This inner modulation. And what we can do now is now modulate more than just the pulse width. So this is another feature of the CS70M that you can't do on an 80, right? You can't modulate the pulse width with a ring modulator, or actually anything but just a simple sine wave. So the 80 and the 70 both have 2 LFOs per voice. The 70 has a programmable LFO that can be sent to 1 or 2. On the 80, we have essentially 4 LFOs, right? So this one can be routed to 1 or 2 or just 1, right? And then the same thing over here. We've got modulation of 1, 1 and 2, or just 2. I'm sorry, on this one, we've either got 1 and 2 or just 1, right? I know it sounds confusing, but the thing is this is better because we can do things like route ring modulation to pulse width modulation, right? Let's route it to the filter as well. So without, it sounds like this. It's such a cool, I mean, talk about Blade Runner 2049, right? Now let's route it to the VCF. Go ahead and try that on a CS80. And by the way, I just want to keep saying it because it might not be obvious. We're listening to one voice, one oscillator, and it's not the ring modulator. We're not listening to the ring modulator. We're just using the ring modulator as a modulation source for the filter and pulse width. Why don't we take it further and see what happens if we route it to the VCA? Fuck it at this point. Let's take it further. Let's increase the attack time so it starts off coherent and gets incoherent. Like me when I've decided it's time to black out, which, by the way, let's black out. It's really sad sounding. I feel like I'm torturing this poor thing. Real quick, Mom, an oscillator. So if I just turn all of this off for a second and let's just go back to like normal. Just like a normal. So we've got a square wave oscillator. It sounds like that. Sawtooth sounds like this. One voice at a time, by the way. Filter shaves off the top end. That's what VCO stands for, voltage controlled oscillator. VCF stands for voltage controlled filter. VCA stands for voltage controlled amplifier. Amplifier is just the volume. So what we're doing here is just taking those same elements that I've talked about a bajillion times in these streams. Just basically three things, right? Is all you need to create a synth voice. Your Poly 800, Mom, that you have that I sold to you, it has oscillators, a filter, and an amplifier. Now, that synthesizer can't do what we're doing right now because of the eccentricities of synths. The way you modulate, which just means change over time, any parameter. That's kind of where the magic in a synthesizer happens. But the truth is, there's certain things that the humble Poly 800 can do that neither a CS70M or an 80 can do, because it's got those really cool Oki MS3150, something like that, oscillator chips in it. And so, am I the luckiest man in the world to have one of these in the studio? Yes, I am. I also celebrate the humble synthesizers like the Poly 800, which I think are great too. This thing sounds great, but there's something to be said for that. VCO is movement. So let's brass it out, right? Slow detune. Man, the oscillator. Take off the front end. A little more. What we need now is to modulate the what I'm doing now is, instead of modulating both of the oscillators with the same amount of pitch drift, I'm only modulating one, so that one oscillator's pretty much in tune and the other one. So we're getting a little pitch drift both from just an inherent amount of offset, just changing the pitch of one to the other, and because they are voltage controlled as opposed to digitally controlled, right? The tuning is already a little random. And then we're increasing that by routing this low frequency oscillator, which is just a control oscillator, does something to the pitch of one of the oscillators, and that's giving it even more drift. If I turn that off, you'll notice that the detune is periodic, right? Or sinusoidal, in the sense it's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down in a somewhat predictable sort of fashion, right? Can I get a dolphin emoji in the chat? As I apply the LFO to the pitch of one of them to bring that in and out of tune, you'll notice that it no longer has, like a dolphin on Adderrall, sort of just constant up and down, but becomes much more of like a dolphin speedballing meth and benzo, or like a barbiturate or something. Which sounds better. I don't know, something like that. Can I get... I appreciate the dolphins in the chat, guys. So now we're just going to make it brassier by increasing the resonance. And of course, the CS, they're the best sounding filters in the world. So real Blade Runner brass doesn't have a lot of resonance in it. Oh, we need attack and decay here. Really, just the smallest amount. And you can hear that digital step there. The notes. But the beautiful thing is that we can increase the resonance further, right? And take it far beyond that. Not too much, is because in this range that you need it for the cutoff frequency, it gets a little bitey, right? You can hear how far apart those resonant peaks fall because of just the inherent sort of vibe to this thing. It's very hard to get the voice cards are all kind of a little bit different, and so you get these really interesting. Could you hear how like discrete each one of those resonant peaks were, right? So as you use these really big times, you get that sort of effect. It's really not that noticeable otherwise, though. Like if we, just... So this is a two voice, right? Like we could put this in unison to get this sort of Tom Sawyer effect, but we really don't need to. So, it doesn't even need more voices, right? It works. Hypothesis says, can we automatically put the synth in the legendary category? I can think of a couple of tests on the legendary synthesizer test, which, by the way, guys, hopefully we'll be back to that with the K2000 next week. I think what I want to do for the next little bit, as long as I can keep it going, is I want to do, like next week, I want to do a legendary stream. Then I want to do a versus stream where we compare two synthesizers. It's up to you guys. I think I want to do the Alpha Juno 2 versus the Juno 6 first, and then the Poly 6 versus the Juno 6 second. But so we'll do like the legendary synthesizer test for the K2000, then a versus stream between the Alpha Juno 2 and the Roland Juno 6. And then we'll do one where I'm actually making some music, what I've called the genre streams, where I go, hey, what's the best synthesizer for making industrial music, right? Or something else. And so that would be kind of a fun one to do as well. And then kind of try to rinse and repeat that. Do that 3 different format of stream. Keep that cycle going, because I think it keeps it interesting. I love doing the versus streams myself, actually. But I think people are always interested in the different types of things we can do. So we've gotten a little bit... Ooh, Buffalo Trace, love that. We've done some brass. Do I have any other synthesizer sounds you guys would like for me to try to make with this while we're here? I really hope I can, Max. I can't promise. I do think it's the discrete circuitry parbs that lends itself to that more wild sound. It really does kind of sound more like an OBX in that sense, because you have that discrete circuitry. Man, this synth just can do so much, can't it? Hear how we can do this like sort of lo-fi beats type sound. I'm gonna go extreme just to set the speed. And then dial it really far back, and then we can kind of get this, you know, kind of giving it that more lo-fi beat sound. And of course, to really maximize this, you have to decrease the EG depth, right? Playing the right notes helps too. Thank you so much for $5. I appreciate it. Damien, earlier on in the stream, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys so much. Yeah, so did I miss anything? If you guys have shouted out anything in the chat you'd like me to check out, ring modulated filter, FMAM using either the Highpass or Bandpass modes with the filter envelope inverted. I got you, Harrison. Did I miss anybody else? If you did have something, let me know. There's very few discrete polys. I'm trying to think. I mean, Memory Moog is chip based, pretty sure. Filters are discrete, I think, but not many. I mean, I think a Jupiter 4 is, you know, but yeah, they're few and far between. Mighty Pinto, how's it going, my friend? Okay, so let me just reread that. Where was Harrison's? Ring modulated filter FM AM using either the Highpass or Bandpass modes with the filter envelope inverted. Okay, so we'll start with that. We'll just invert the filter envelope and we'll use the Bandpass filter for fun. Oh, that's why. Let's use ×5 to see how slow we can get that. Wow, it's like so slow. Wow. It is difficult to figure out where I want to be with this. It's weird. It's like you can feel it doing something. It's I think it's just the inverted envelopes that's throwing me, because bandpass filters are weird in the first place. There we go. That's better. That's more what I'm looking for. None of your business. How's it going? So we can route this second LFO. We haven't bothered to touch all stream to the amplifier. We can do it right here. Getting that gritty texture. So we're using this other LFO. Like I said, we haven't bothered with all stream on a square modulation. So we have that. That's kind of nice to get even more grit to the sound. And then we can start to really fuck shit up with the ring modulator again. So we don't have to use any modulation again to hear what the ring modulator is doing. And I love the sound of amplitude modulation as opposed to frequency modulation, because the thing about FM with analog synths anyways, it's a whole different thing when we start getting into DX7 style phase modulation. But with FM synths, or I'm sorry, analog synths, when you start doing cross mod, things get out of tune real quick, which is what we're hearing here with the ring modulator. But with amplitude modulation, until you're in audio rate, things tend to be more more stable, and even in audio rate, it's usually not quite as brutal. And currently, modulation depth doesn't do anything because it's just a ring modulator. It's not actually being routed to anything yet. So if we wanted to route it further to the amplifier of both 1 and 2, we can. I haven't checked out Alien Earth yet. Has anybody yet? I'm curious what everybody has to say. Of course I'm going to watch it. Let's route it to the filter now. See how this sounds. It's just a lot. It's devolved. I love that you're fat and hungry. That's such a perplexing combination, isn't it? Yeah, Aquatic, it does have a certain kind of, it does have a certain charm to it, doesn't it? It's, you know, I don't mean to be like this, but they don't make them like they used to. You know, they still, it kind of just has its own unique little flavor to it. And I'm very proud, too, to be, I think, the only guy really on YouTube who sings the praises of this thing. During its time, 1981, like I said, this thing really got passed over because there were so many cool new synths coming out. You know, we didn't have any Junos yet. We didn't have the DX7. The Poly 6 came out the same year, and for what it's worth, kind of has a 70s look to it as well. But things were moving the way of the Jupiter 8. You know, people were like, whoa, I want that. And this, I think, just felt like more of the past. And unfortunately, it didn't get the treatment it really deserved to get all of the gorgeousness that it could do. So let's do, what is it? CV only. Let's do CV only record, and we'll go in and go. Let's see, does that work? Did I do that correctly? I always forget how this works. There is a trick to this. Okay, let's record and CV only, or let's take that out of record, CV only, and let's I haven't actually recorded with the oh, I have to repeat what that's. Okay, let's record. Let's pick B and go. Let's see. I think I missed a note in there, so let's go. Let's try CV only and record. There we go. We have a sine wave in here that we can add just like on the 80. I haven't messed with it because the synth sounds thick enough, but if you want it for like a bass sound. Get into some of that territory. This is a polyphonic sequencer, by the way. I'm not the best with sequencers. Everybody knows that, but it is there for anybody who wants to get into that. We could go for less of that type of a sound. So we could go into record and record. And then we could go, oh, I think I had in CV only mode, so that might not work. No, it did not work. Okay. So select C again and go, whoop, fuck that up. And again, I just played monophonically, but we could go into D and record and go. So we're in triplet time. So just another way that we can interact with the instrument. I'm the worst at sequencers, so I'm not going to pretend like that was good, but it is a thing that you can't do on the 80. Lonnie asks, what filter chip is that? It is the CS analog discrete filter. So there's really nothing like it. The closest thing is like an Oberheim 2-pole. So it's a 2-pole state variable filter, like an Oberheim 2-pole state variable filter. I've heard that one of the characteristic things about the resonance on a CS synth is that as it goes higher up, it becomes less pronounced, and I think the Q of the resonance changes either to be wider or more narrow. And so you get this really pleasing sort of characteristic as opposed to, say, you know, like a roll-in filter, of course, sounds great too, but very sharp clinical sounding filter as compared to what we have going on here. Yes, the lights are coordinated. Oh wait, fuck that up. So. Oh, it's so hard. Yep, that's good. Oh, fuck, I fucked it up again. It's so hard. Very delicate and nice. That would be right, Harmonic. It is not a cheap synth, unfortunately. I would love to tell you it is. Lexa Kyra, the Waldorf Kyra was the first FPGA-based synthesizer. I don't know if people know that, but I believe it is. Oh, it looks like my camera's dead, too. Or at least the movement part of it is, anyways. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty good place to call it for tonight. After we do some Unison. Let's pick 2 CV only, and we'll record. Okay. So I think that is the best place we could possibly call it for the evening. I mean, just talk about a fucking sound, right? That is something else. So I hope you guys had fun. Very exciting. And if you felt inspired by this at all, that's the goal. I have been meaning to say this more during streams, but the goal of what I'm doing with this channel is not to inspire envy and lust in expensive vintage gear. The goal is to showcase what these instruments sound like. And the truth is, whatever synthesizer you have in front of you, you can make sounds like this. I will all day, every day defend that a lot of times vintage synths do sound a little bit different, and the manufacturers of plugins and the like that try to clone it don't always do the best job. So it's important, I feel, for me to call out those differences and to be transparent about the fact that no, they are not the same always. But the more important, deeper truth is that that shouldn't stop anybody from making incredible music. And some of the best pieces of music were made with gear that I myself wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to buy, but some of my favorite songs were made with it. So what does that say? So I hope you guys had fun with this one. I am very lucky to have it aquatic. I was very lucky to grab it at a great price. I'm very lucky to have Ramiro from Severed Machines. He's not close to my house, but he's within, I can drive there. And to have him modify it so that now it is a one-of-a-kind CS70M is pretty great. And I hope if anybody, you know, goes to get interested in this type of synthesizer, you know, the SK series is really worth a look. The homie Madeira, Midera, has some videos on the SKs, and he makes them sound as good as that. I don't know that I could, but he's always awesome. Adapt, I appreciate it. It does. You know, the thing is I'm not against, or I'm definitely one of those people who believes digital audio is great. And you don't need to worry about it when it comes to your DAW and whatever. What is a real issue is YouTube compression, right? So you have to use AAC to stream to YouTube. So the difference between these live stream audio that I have versus if you watch a video of mine that doesn't have live stream audio, right, where it's just the actual audio, it's only encoded once as opposed to twice. And when it's encoded twice, you really get those artifacts in there. So I hope that's something that one day it would be great if YouTube allowed us to stream PCM audio, but so far, not so much. FD, hello! I don't know how long you've been watching, but I did shout out, and if you guys haven't yet, in the link of this video, or in the description is a link to Miss FD's new Euphoria EP. Was also shouting out the new Angel Spit record that came out this week. So it's been a great week if you're into dark music. Miss FD is much more dancey, synth poppy type stuff, and then Angel Spit's going to be much more yelly, anger music. So I appreciate it, Lonnie, for sure. The CS80, of course I'd love to have a CS80, but I do think even if I ever had the opportunity, I do think the 70M is its own thing that has its own sound, which in some ways is more my thing anyways, because I do like those really more aggressive dark type stuff. It's definitely worth it, aquatic. I was lucky enough to be the engineer on the Euphoria EP by Miss FD. Thank you again, FD, for hiring me. I appreciate you. And then I'm just a big fan of Angel Spit, and it's always awesome to have him here. So anyways, yes, I love that, Lex. With that, guys, let's call it an evening. Continue to be excellent, and I will see you in the next week or so. Take care.